videos on using a Accusump or a oil accumulator in a 1993 Chevy OBS. It's mounted down below the radiator, bolted to the radiator core right here. Over here, I wanted to keep the head of the bolts low so they don't rub on the radiator. And then here's your valve, which will come on whenever the ignition's on and shut off whenever the ignition's off. So it will hold oil to pre-lube, and so when you get in the vehicle and you turn the key to on and start cranking, the valve turns on and the oil runs up through this hose and back into the engine or motor, whatever you want to call it, and runs back up through the hoses back into the motor, and will pre-lube the motor. Also, I'm use it so that I could just put 5 quarts in the oil pan, and this will store 1.5 quarts, and that will help with windage in the oil pan, so you don't have much windage. Now that I'm running a roller lifter motor, I don't have to worry about having oil supplied to a flat tappet cam. If you don't have windage in your motor and you're running a flat tappet cam, you're going to burn the cam up. So with rollers, you don't have to worry about that so much. You want to cut all the windage out you can, because the rollers will work well enough with what bleeds off the lifter bores and the lifter valley onto the camshaft. And so then the oil will run up here, and I'll show you on the motor what I got. Got rid of the leaky old oil bypass system that the GM put on there. Those hoses tend to just leak enough to piss you off. So then here's the hoses. This hose will hook to the radiator, and so will this one. These go to the radiator, one to the top, one to the bottom. Go through the oil cooler, and then back in and around. And I put a Moroso bypass, oil filter bypass here, or oil system bypass, so you got in and out. So you always want to hook the accumulator, Accusump, to the in line. You want it on the in line. And then what you want to do on the in line is run here's my valving for so you got a check valve down there, and then you got a splitter. One will come from the Accusump and one will come from the motor, because they're both in, but it's into the motor, not into the radiator. So you want it to run into the motor, not into the oil cooler and the radiator. And so that check valve down here, right here, will stop it from going through the cooler backwards, like when you shut the motor off and stuff. And then here's where it's going to come out of the cooler, and or it'll go in the cooler here, through the cooler, in the radiator, and out the valve on the bottom to the motor. And then the Accusump will come in and run to one of these ports, and whenever you shut the motor off or you run low on oil or whatever, it'll fill this thing with oil, and then force the oil back up through the motor through those lines I showed you earlier. So you got to make sure you run a check valve in the system, because you don't want the oil to come out of the Accusump and run wild backwards through the out. You want it to go back in through the in the motor. You want it to go into the motor, not into the cooler. So you got to run a check valve, and that stops it from running into the cooler and going backwards through the system, or trying to go backwards through the system. And that's about all I have to say on that. Thanks for watching.